Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Tooele Happy Hour starring Jared Anderson and David Weiss, where if head trauma had a podcast, this is what it would sound like, especially with tonight's guest, Greg Hughes. Greg, you're actually a radio show star too, aren't you?
I'm a wannabe. Rod Arquette on his program, he lets me come on Wednesdays, Wingman Wednesdays, and I'll guest host every once in a while.
Well, here we go. I mean, This is going to be a unique experience because we're kind of we're low stream podcast, but we like to ask some off the cuff questions. And with the second district special election going on, this is a pretty intense moment for politics, and something big is going to happen with 13 different Republican candidates.
Walking in on Saturday at Delta High School. It's a winner take all convention, so stakes are high. Tons of candidates. So the delegates, it's all I've been doing is trying to get in front of delegates so I can answer every question, but we don't have a whole lot of time. So it's, trying to make it's a high information election cycle, but the math says I'm not going to meet every delegate. So I'm just trying to meet as many of the delegates as I can. And I love having them as jurors. I'm not getting signatures. Whatever they say goes. And I'm good with that.
Well, we've got a delegate right here.
Yeah, at least you get to meet me.
That's right. That's good.
Hey, do you hear a knock on the door?
I think there's a knock at the door.
Yeah.
Come in.
You actually heard that before it even knocked. It's clairvoyant of you.
Hey, look what we got, ladies and gentlemen.
We have
So we have our guest from Roxbury here.
yes.
What'd you bring us, Jocelyn?
I've got a Raspberry Rush, an Acai Smart Blend, a Simply Peach, and a Mango.
So I'd like to say thank you to Roxbury for this wonderful advertising opportunity. We're going to drink your smoothies and enjoy them all together here, all three of us tonight.
Yeah, so if you guys are looking for Roxbury, it's down kind of in the strip mall to the north.
This is the mango?
To the north of the Walmart here. So if you don't know where it is, do you know what the address is for the Roxbury here?
I'm not totally sure. I could look it up for you.
Okay. Well, we'll look it up and throw that out there for everyone. But
Okay, great.
it's down in the strip mall next to the Walmart. There used to be a Radio Shack there, but that's a critter that's out of service now.
And they've got the best flavors. They got acai, mango, and everything tropical. And if you haven't tried an acai blend yet, that's from my wife's country in Brazil. Cool fruit, really neat flavor, very unique experience. And I think only Roxbury's got it here in Tooele.
All right.
I gotta tell you, Wingman Wednesday, we never had any Roxbury visits like this. We never got the drinks. I think I have been missing out. This is the place to be.
Right?
Well,
Yeah,
This is how we advertise.
it's how you roll.
Thank you, Roxbury. Thank you, Jocelyn.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jocelyn,
You have a
thank
good
you.
night.
You
Take
too.
that with you.
Oh, thank you so
Have a
much.
wonderful
You
night,
guys have a
okay?
great night.
Take care.
All right. So
Good.
we're back in action. All right. So Greg, you have a substantial political history in the state of Utah. You were our speaker at one time.
Yep.
And you ran for governor, and according to most of our listeners, sadly lost.
Yes.
The sadly part, and we're on board with that, I think.
I still got some of your signs in my garage. Just
I've heard. I've been instructed by the better halves. I need to go trade these out, which I'm excited to do, but we don't have them on sticks yet. So
You might want to go trade them out when she's not there, because she's spicy about those signs in the garage.
she's good with it. She
But no.
actually likes you, Greg.
Yeah.
we got along the other night at the veterans event. It was
Yeah, that was
conversation.
and that was a good event. Met up with Greg at the Hope for Life Foundation.
Yep.
That's something that we enjoy going to 100%. But anyways, so
Let's dive right into it.
running for Congress.
Man, it's a truth or dare game without the dare. So you go ahead and ask anything you want.
What's your plans? What's your goals if you get into Congress? What are some things you would like to do different than Stewart?
So, and I love Congressman Stewart. I've had 19 delegate meetings now, and it comes out in every meeting. It's amazing that people appreciate his representation. He has stayed in touch in all the different communities. He's on the ground. It was very easy for me at first to say, yeah, of course I'm going to respond as well as Chris Stewart. But as you hear every single county, there's 13 counties in the second district. It's a bit daunting. And I texted him and said, I don't know how you're doing it, but if I get a shot at this, I'm going to have to learn how you're doing it. But I think what I bring is, because I've been in our state legislature, I know what the legislative branch is supposed to be, a separate and equal power. It's meant to challenge the judiciary and the executive branch. They're not supposed to get over their skis. That's how it's all supposed to work. But when you watch, especially in Washington, D.C., you have in the executive branch overreach. You have weaponization of federal law enforcement. You see the IRS getting aggressive. You see the EPA getting aggressive. You see in Utah, Bureau of Land Management, way over aggressive in terms of compelling behavior in people's lives. The legislature was built to put that in check. And I don't see it. And the way they do this is power of the purse. So you got to have a budget, you got to pass a budget, and then you bring in people and you say, we're not going to throw good taxpayer money after bad effort in victimizing American citizens. So what I'd say is the legislative branch, in the absence of them passing bills, approving budgets, the executive branch is more than happy to fill that void. And same with the judiciary. You get this judicial activism. It's because you don't have statutes that would actually set the rules by federal code, because you have Congress pass them and you pass laws. So that's what happens. And I think that, some people don't know what they don't know. They get into a system, it's running, it seems, and they're just trying to figure out how to work in it. I think I bring a perspective of understanding what the role of a legislative branch is. I know that freshmen don't throw furniture around and wag their finger. You can't change it all at once.
Oh yeah, tell that to Cortez.
Yeah, or actually, good point.
Or even Green or
yeah. So I do think it's time to have uncomfortable conversations and really demand. You should be demanding that this Congress act the way it was supposed to. The whole Constitution, whether it be our country or our state, if you didn't have a separate and equal branch of government like the legislature doing its job, it doesn't work. Yeah. How do you check what's going on when you're not exercising that power? And lastly, I'll just say this: the legislative branch is built to do the hardest work the American citizens need, because you spread that political capital over many, many people. If you need in the U.S. Congress 218 to pass something, you spread that political capital across all those members, and you're bearing all that weight together. That's how it's supposed to work. It's not like a governor or a president where they can sign or veto a bill so all the weight's on their shoulders. We're not seeing that. We're not seeing that strength in numbers that the legislative branch, Congress, is designed to actually do. And that's something that I think every frustration I have about that swamp and what I'm watching, and that I don't think is sustainable for my kids to have the same country that I have, that I've grown up in and lived in, I can get back down to that legislative branch not exercising its constitutional powers. They're not afraid of them. They're not afraid of their budgets. They're not afraid because they don't pass them. They're not afraid of a law that's going to show up that's going to stop them from doing what they want, because they won't pass it. It's got to change.
Well, yeah, and the Congress has given up its power, but also where we're running currently on a debt-based government, a lot of Congress's power was in the purse, and they gave that up, and that allowed the government to move to a debt-based monetary system. What tools does Congress have now?
So look, a lot of it's, as you just said, entitlement spending takes probably most of the treasury that comes in by way of taxpayer. That's just on autopilot. They don't decide any of that anymore.
And nor do I think it'd be appropriate to touch already designated entitlement stuff.
To a degree. And I'm not going to fall in the Democrat trap of, you're trying to take away Social Security. I'm not. But when you take that large of a portion of the budget and you just make it automatic entitlement spending without any regard to how the whole pie is appropriated and worked, I just think that's legislatures in every state, because they don't print money, they don't do that. They actually have to set aside, they have to prioritize those things every single budget year, and they do. This Congress, or Congress in general, they don't do that. But what I'd say is you have to, in the areas you can spend or that you are appropriating money, you have to get these budgets. And Congress will send out a subpoena for someone to come appear with someone from the administration or from EPA. They ignore it. They're not afraid of contempt of Congress. Now, look at our state legislature. When they call up Davis School District because they just banned the Bible on a bill that Representative Ivory passed that has if you look at what they did, they didn't follow the law. The legislature has an administrative rules committee, state. They don't subpoena them. They just send them the agenda and the day they're supposed to be there. And they come and they report. And you know why? Because they're appropriators. And they know full well that Utah's legislature, Senate and House, are not going to throw good taxpayer money after bad effort.
Just pull their funds.
And there they go. They're right there ready to answer the questions. And it's not a comfortable meeting for them. It happened last week. But they're going to, that is what a legislative branch should be able to do.
Well, what consequences can they produce for those people who don't appear?
So if they're in contempt, I mean, you can subpoena someone and it can actually get to the point where it breaks the law. The reason why I don't think, David, you see, whether it's a large school district or if you were to call up one of the state agencies to talk to the state legislature, is that in that next budget process, you will pare back. You can't, you don't have to automatically increase a respective budgets, budget for the next year.
They
you can
could
say
possibly even lose money.
They could, and you could say, you know what, I don't really like the bribe. I don't like the outcome here. I don't want to pay more money for this. This is, and that isn't threatening. That's not bad. That's actually what the appropriations process is supposed to be. How are taxpayer money? How is it collected? How is it allocated? How is it prioritized? If you have people that are attacking, banning the Bible on a bill that was meant to take really pornographic and graphic material that's in front of children in their libraries or in their curriculum and do something about it, and they came up with some cheeky, I guess the Bible is what you meant. Okay, it's not funny and it's not okay. And someone has to walk through with the legislature. How did you take this bill we just passed? Tell us how you got where you did. And the answers haven't been very good. So
yeah, that's how
accountability. Wouldn't that be nice to see in Washington?
Yep.
Wouldn't you love to able see them come? You just inform them of the committee hearing date and have them come and have to explain. FBI doesn't care what Congress thinks because they get their money. They get their funding, and they could care less what they're saying. So
what if we turned over just a thought, shooting off the hip. Is there a possible way to move Social Security benefits, welfare benefits already are dominated by the state, handed out by the state, right?
Yep.
But what if we turned Social Security over to the states?
Yeah, look, anything that gets closer to the people by way of government is better. Okay, I'm just going to tell you, it's closer to the people. There's a constitution with enumerated right. There's things that says that the federal government can do, and anything that's not mentioned, it's up to the states. And you could certainly put that in the category. But, the Democrats will say, look, he's trying to steal your Social Security, cut your Social Security. It's just this mantra I can't stand. How about let's get rid of a Department of Education? I can tell you this. I mean, if you just want to, as quickly as you can, take a bureaucracy that has not only does it have not one good thing to do with our public schools.
This is a family-friendly show, Greg. I don't think we allow pornography on this show.
Yeah. Well, get rid of the Department of Education, and you won't hurt. You'll probably help every kid in this country because 50 states don't look the same. Every school district has their challenges with their employee, people that work there, the students that go there, everything. Back to even George W. Bush with No Child Left Behind. It didn't match our state.
No.
I was in the legislature. Those federal mandates by a Republican president, they didn't work.
They were heinous.
You couldn't do it. And so I just think this federal approach to our kids, their education, it's worse than useless. It's actually detrimental. And I think that's an area you could go right away and pull that back.
Also these larger corporations like, so recently, this weekend, Amazon locked a guy out of their house because he might have said something racist. And they did that through one of those automatic smart locks as a corporation. And, there's other companies like BlackRock and Vanguard that are starting to push this ESG agenda or ask you to be more sensitive to the gay and pride communities. Is there any way that as a federal representative, you can push back on that particular front?
So, some of these things you can even just add your voice. There's a lot of fear going on. Okay. There's a lot of people that have heartfelt feelings about whether they're sexualizing kids in our schools or whether, there's a lot going on where people are afraid to speak up. Because when you speak up, what the left likes to do is common ground is their ground. If you want common ground, you need to come to your senses and agree with them. And if you don't agree, well, then you suffer from some moral failing. that you're a racist, a bigot, something, or you're ignorant. You're just not intelligent enough to see what they're saying. And so this idea that we have to let everyday common sense Utahns, Americans know that you're not alone. We're all actually out here, and there's more of us than there are of these social engineers that are trying to engineer everyone's lives. I think that strength in number actually helps. I would say that, I don't see some magic bill that Congress can pass that's going to end some of these things. But let's start talking about, when did big government and big business merge at the expense of the middle class? Yeah. When did that happen?
Bill Clinton.
I'll tell you, I saw a question there about me. What's the difference between me and other candidates? I would just tell you that I feel battle tested. I feel like when we took on tough issues, when we fought Obamacare expansion, when Obama went and got bear's ears and treated Utah like an ATM for environmentalists, encumbering more land. And you got to imagine these rural areas where they've grown up on this land. They're part of it. They've been there. And to have Washington come in and say, you're not good stewards, you're going to destroy the land, so we're going to prohibit you from being on it or how you access it. It's very emotional and very traumatic to people that live there. I went down when I was Speaker of the House and I said, we're going to go with the Trump administration. We're going to fight back and we're going to get this thing. I wanted to see it reversed. It was reduced. Well, those are things that when you look at all the candidates that are going to make promises in a campaign season, I'd like to show you that I think I have a record of having stood up to the fear, the media, the left, in terms of trying to get some of these things accomplished. I've done the work. It's why I have county commissioners. When I ran for governor in 2020, we won 10 counties. Mm-hmm. And I think that the reason it was southern Utah and rural Utah in the basin. Well, the basin's not in the 2nd district, but 7 of the 10 counties that we won are in the 2nd district. And I think that, why do county commissioners and those in those areas support me? It's because I've already done the work. It's not just what I'm saying. It's not what I'm promising. It's what work we've done on lands, water infrastructure, transportation. And so I'm kind of a hybrid to the question. I feel like I've been adopted by southern Utah and rural Utah voters from that 2020 race and from the work I did when I was Speaker of the House and in the legislature. But then I can come up north, come here to Tooele, talk about transportation issues, talk about the issues. You got an airport that Salt Lake City owns. That's got to be frustrating. I know that I worked on that issue too, specifically when I was in the House, trying to get the FAA to appreciate that Tooele County should have some stronger say in that. But then you get into Salt Lake County and Davis County that are in the district. I have dealt with those issues too of growth and those things. So I think I'm a hybrid candidate where I can meet the end of it. You don't want to elect somebody who's completely disconnected from the issues that you don't want to
or
remember
even
Congress.
One side or the issues.
Yes. I mean, you want someone that actually gets what it is that you're grappling with. And I think that I bring that to this race uniquely. I don't just have an epicenter somewhere in this district from where I'm known. I think I have a broader experience.
So one of the complaints about you particularly is that you don't live in the district. Why should or should that not matter?
Well, I'd like kind of to that point, instead of the zip code, I want you to look at a track record and see, because the reason I would not want someone, or I would instinctively hope to have someone that lives in my community, is because I don't want them to be disconnected. So the question is, are they connected to the issues that are relevant in your life? So I had a Mill Creek in Salt Lake City's in the 2nd district, and my friend who has a boxing gym, we held a delegate meeting at his gym. You have people that live in Salt Lake County that have lived in the same home, and they're in different congressional districts every 10 years. They keep bouncing around. They haven't moved. The district around them moves. And so
it's like church wards.
Exactly. And so this idea, the Constitution doesn't require you live in a district, but they do require that the district be separated into these equal parts. You do have it move around. I would say this, it's not a bad fate to move to southern Utah, rural Utah, or have a home. None of that's, I always joke, there's 2 types of people in Utah. There's those that have a home in southern Utah and those that want one. It's not a bad fate. I'm not against it. I do have property. I have residences that are in the 2nd district, but more importantly than zip codes, I really, really want to emphasize, because those change when you have the redistricting. Do you have someone who gets it, who gets the issues that you want them to go back to Congress and fight for? I think I have a body of work and effort to make that case. And that's why, and then when I was looking at, I wasn't even thinking of running for the seat at first, but 2 of our 4 members of Congress didn't live in the district. Burgess Owens doesn't live in it. Blake Moore, I think, maybe just moved into it, but when he ran, he wasn't in it. When it was redistricted, he still didn't. And again, no rub. I'm making the same case, but I didn't know it was as common. Jason Chaffetz didn't live in his district the whole time he served it. Matheson didn't. But I think one of those issues is because those lines move around. The Constitution doesn't require that be the case. But what we should all want, and it's a legitimate issue to ask, is someone that's connected to our issues. Now, when you get 13 counties in a district, being disconnected from those issues, even with the right zip code, you got to be careful. I mean, if you live in Mill Creek, I don't know that means that you're automatic because you're in the district in Mill Creek and Salt Lake City that you understand Southern Utah or Kane County, rural Utah, Beaver County issues. I don't know that means that you can assume that. So I want to put my record out there. I want to put my body of work, what I've done, and have voters consider that.
It's fair enough.
Not just that, but I mean, you're going back to DC to represent state issues.
Correct.
And you're going back with 3 other congressmen.
Yep.
To hopefully be a team to protect our state.
That's right. And look, I know that my quality of life's going to go down on this. Okay. I'm not, this isn't a joyride. I have kids, okay? Young adults, 24, 21, 19 years old. I grew up in very different circumstances than I've raised my children. My mother was a single mom. We were pretty poor. We'd move around apartment to apartment. I go to new school every single year. We get the power turned off, different things. The way my children are growing up is different from that. But you know why? Because I live in the United States of America, which meant I could have the liberty of self-determination. I could live. I wasn't born into some caste system where how I was born is the only thing I could ever do. But I look now, and guys, I don't know that my kids are going to have that liberty of self-determination or do whatever their heart desires or have those goals. It's unsustainable what I'm watching out of Washington right now. I don't see how you can not have a border, how you can let inflation keep increasing and robbing us in real time of paychecks and household income, and food costs more, housing costs more, fuel costs more. I mean, interest rates for homes cost is going up. I just don't understand how anyone thinks how this can continue to go this way. And so that's why I'm leaning in. I think I have some experience in this area that I could lend to this effort, because I don't want to see it go down. I don't think it's the Titanic. I'm not trying to rearrange chairs on the deck. We're the land of the free, home of the brave, and I'll give it a go, but only if delegates in that convention say so. I got no other version of life. It's only what the delegates say.
You're putting yourself forward, and we appreciate that. And I'll be honest, I do like that you have a track record in state politics all the way up to speaker, where you've got a understanding on how to argue your point and then work for the best compromise.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, look, the legislative branch is an effort of addition. Okay, if you don't have the votes in a committee, then the status quo will reign. If you get out of committee, you get on the floor of the House, and you don't have the votes there, the status quo will reign. If you get to the Senate, same story. You always have to be adding. You have to be adding people, finding actual, real common ground. Look, when Newt Gingrich took over Congress in '94 after 40 years of Democrats running it, he went with Democrat Bill Clinton, and what did he do? They balanced the budget. Okay, yeah. That wasn't the Democrats weren't dying to do that. Okay, they balanced the budget. They put time limits on welfare and unemployment. That was something that came out of a state legislature in Wisconsin. It was a best practice. They cut the welfare rolls in the United States in half by that. But that was a Republican Speaker of the House and a Democrat president to get those things done. So,
that was one of the biggest, if you want to argue it, conservative governments this nation's had. It's wild.
Never in my life did I think I'd look back at a Bill Clinton presidency and go, wow, that was actually conservative, but a lot more.
I miss that guy.
I mean, come on. He said in the State of the Union, the era of big government's over. You remember this? I mean, it's, but look, you can even flip parties and flip positions. You can say Ronald Reagan, the president, Tip O'Neill, the Speaker of the House. In the 80s. I like the 80s. Fun time for me, but I liked Ronald Reagan. Hell, I named a kid Reagan. Did I just swear on your show?
You're fine.
So
you're right. Just no pornography.
Don't forget though, he did flip California blue. I mean, we can't let that go. From Reagan's perspective.
Well, I think it was Brown that flipped California blue, but Reagan
they hammered it out. Tip O'Neill and Reagan hammered some stuff out.
Yeah.
I know this can happen. I know it's not. It can actually work. It can.
Yet Tip O'Neill moved a lot of Reagan policies to the left.
Yeah.
Moved a lot of them, and Newt Gingrich moved a lot of Clinton policies to the right.
Yeah,
and it's wild.
That is the game of the legislative branch, and this is what I'd say when I was the Speaker of the House, when we meet as a Republican caucus. Imagine this: 75 seats, 63 Republicans. The Republican from West Valley City doesn't look a thing like the Republican from Kane County in southern Utah. Okay, their constituencies are not the same. Mm-hmm. So you almost had not two parties, but you had very different perspectives within your Republican Party. All we would say is this: everyone gets to speak their mind. Everyone, if we negotiate a budget with the governor and the Senate, and you don't like this, stand up and let's talk about it. But at the end of the day, no one takes their toys and go home. No, we don't have protest votes. You don't have the luxury of a protest vote. We're going to come up with the votes to get something done, and then put out a motion. Can you get the votes to coalesce around whatever you see you like or don't like? And we would make that an open floor, have that debate, but with the requirement, we are going to go do something. We are not going to acquiesce or just say we're not going to do anything and let the status quo. Unless the status quo you think is measurably better than what we're even talking about, then yes, it's no and leave the status quo. But if we're trying to get something done, you got to get those numbers together. And what I found is in a diverse or just different districts, of Republicans in the House, you can land on some smart math and some smart ideas and common sense. And that's where I thought that it isn't as partisan as a lot of people would like to make it, in terms of you can find smart public policy where there is common ground, where you're moving the needle to the right, more conservative. And you got to take your votes. I think the reason why Reagan couldn't be successful at 100% of everything he did is he had a House that was controlled by the Democrats. Yeah. How are you going to get it passed?
Here's another thought is I've read state bills, right? And you can sit down and read them without taking a nap break and things like that. Our state bills, I think the biggest one I've seen is like digging into the whole bill is somewhere around like 65 pages. It's the biggest one I've seen.
There's some that are bigger, but
it had a lot of detail to it, a lot of guts. But it focused. It wasn't like, okay, here's our state bill paragraph and then all the earmarks and pork. On revert to page 3 for what I'm sending back to my county back in Delaware or wherever. You know, how do we rein that in DC?
I'll tell you what, I'd love to do this. It's called single subject. So what the Utah legislature does is you get a single subject. You don't get to Christmas tree this thing. You don't get to take every policy and it's trying to get someone's vote for this issue and then going over here. If it's on public education and it's opening up a section of code, that's where you're at. You don't get to span it out into all these other things. And that's where, if you see a bill in our state legislature, you'll see there's like a point. It's like bullet points at the top where it goes. And then as you're serving longer, you can see the underlined language that's added, the struck language that comes out. You start to have more familiarity with the areas of code, and you can get to the heart of that bill pretty quick. Even the long ones are taking a large piece of state statute, so it's got a lot of pages. But there's not new language on every page. You can find where the added language and the struck language is to really know what that bill's saying. You go to Congress, they got phone books. If anyone the kids out there know what a phone book is, but they're this thick, and they give you no time to read it. The time that bill's hitting the floor, there's not 20 staff members reading as fast as they could that could even take the notes and share back to a member of Congress or a senator what in the world that bill even says.
I'll bet Mike Lee has a battalion of people just to read those.
Absolutely, he does.
And a phone book is like an encyclopedia, folks. I mean,
here we go.
We could keep going. But
so Mike Lee, though, won't pass a bill or vote yes on a bill unless he's been able to read it and digest it. Is there some sort of a law that we could somehow present that would provide time and ample opportunity for our representatives to read those things?
Yeah, but if you get enough votes to make it a law, you should have enough votes to make it a rule. I mean, look, there's so much about that legislative body that they could make rules to make the process a lot more fair. You can go single subject. Okay, you can do it. I mean, states do, and the sun still rises in the east, sets in the west. It's not going to end the world. You can require there be so many days between a bill being introduced once it's public and when it can get on the floor, and whether it's by votes to pass a law or votes to change the rule, it's going to take bodies to do it. But you have to start bringing these things up in the public and be very transparent about it, because I'd like to know the lawmaker's argument against. I don't want the time to read the bill. Someone make that argument back. They're not going to. But if you have a very transparent,
wasn't it Nancy Pelosi that said we've got to vote yes on the bill so you can see what is in it?
Yep, she said that, and that is just fundamentally not how the system is supposed to work. Yeah, and that was Obamacare. She said that about.
Yes, it was.
It's not designed to work that way. It is a manipulative process to put bills out that no one can actually read before they vote on, and it doesn't have to be. That's to your question. What do? You create rules and you be very transparent about the rules you're seeking, that everyday common sense Utahns and Americans go, well, that makes sense. Yeah. Why wouldn't you do it that way? Someone tell me why you don't want the ability to read the bill.
I can't imagine a person sitting in mid San Francisco just got done with their fentanyl drip and their avocado toast arguing against a single.
Oh, this is my
there you go.
Dinner of Champions right here.
Dinner of Champions.
This is,
Add that to
That's
your
my
Roxbury.
choice too.
yeah, this is with my Roxbury.
Yeah, the sugar-free Red Bull is
Yeah,
my.
'cause
It tastes like Smarties.
Yeah, sugar free because I'm a health freak. You see this, right?
Yeah, it works.
I go sugar free.
Hey, and nothing works like Red Bull.
That's right.
Hey, speaking about transparency, Greg, what can you do as a representative, if you're elected, to be more transparent with us?
Look, man, I would love for people to see this process. When I get in there, I really think that there's discussions to be had, conversations. I would like to see the process like I'm talking about right now. This gets wonkish, and I don't know if people, but you do need to change how long a bill is available or public before you have to vote on it. And we should talk very loudly about that. I will be speaking very, very loud because I have something to contrast it to. I've been a member of a legislative branch. I know how, and I'm not saying they're perfect, okay? But I know how it's worked. I know how we've balanced budgets year after year. I know how you set money aside, rainy day funds.
What's this balanced budget you speak of when you go back to Congress?
Yeah, they've never heard of it. We saw one back.
I wouldn't say take a dictionary and show it to them, but again, another tone
honestly,
that is missing.
this idea of how the way they are spending and the way it is crushing the lives of the middle class and of everyday people, that's something that if I were being transparent, I would start talking in terms of the stories and the people that our current trajectory as a Congress, we are harming people's lives in real time right now. And if you keep talking about this, that's the unique thing that the Congress has too, is it has this platform where you can actually speak and have a little bit more of a voice. And you're looking for those other people from other states who are like-minded. Take for instance, the Freedom Caucus. Mm-hmm. It's 45 members. Now look, some people have said, oh, they're obstructionists and everything else. I love that they held Kevin McCarthy, the speaker, for a while. And we're not getting our vote. But they were fighting for some of these process changes, okay, that have been very, very good. I think you have a better speaker in him because they weren't voting until they got that. But
he went in there under kind of a mandate.
Yes. And so, but he had to make some commitments to get those votes, which he did. And I think it's better for it. But 45, I'm going to tell you, you got to get to 90. Go get a buddy system. You better get to 90. And when you get to 90, go find 108, do a buddy system again, because you've got to get those numbers to actually move some of the things we're talking about today. What I would be is very transparent, open about that system, and I just want to put some bills on the floor. Let them vote against it. Let people give people a voting record. Don't be cynical and go, well, we'll never pass, we'll never do it. No, let's start laying out the case of what we think. We're on the side of everyday Utahns and Americans. If they don't want to vote for these things, let them vote against it, but don't hide it. And so I think transparency can come in a few ways. One, talking about process and what's wrong with the process, what could be done better, and being very vocal about it. And then also, let's get some of these bills, even in committee. If they don't pass committee, let the American people, let Utahns know who wants to stop a bill that I would argue the American people would do nothing but appreciate, without regard to political affiliation either. You want to read a bill. Someone's against that?
Mm-hmm. That's ridiculous.
Let's get it
You
out.
want to take my money to pay for something you don't know what it's going.
You don't know what's in there, and you think that's the better way to do it? I don't think so.
I've gotten to where I kind of argue the other way on this. Is I know a lot of people want to be hard on politicians, and I've been known to be a little surly. But I think unless we start educating the general populace, it doesn't matter what we do.
You're right. But I'll tell you what, I think we have the best chance we've ever had to do that because I think things are so crazy right now and so counterintuitive. I don't see a lot of apathy. I don't see people, who cares? I'm just doing my thing. I think people are worried. I don't know how inflation hasn't caught the attention of everyday people. I don't know. So I don't see the apathy as bad as I might have seen it before. So I think people are looking for what in the world is going on here.
So
I think there's an interest.
Comfort's gone.
It is gone. Do you know that the consumer debt? I saw this. I heard this statistic just a couple weeks ago. Americans have never been in more debt than they are right now. Our credit card debt, as a country, it's because the bills don't match up. You can't pay your bills, so you start putting more on credit cards, and the credit card debt is now staggering.
You can't Americans live like you did 3 years ago.
Yeah, and look, think about this. Every time I hear when I hear the Biden administration or a Democrat tell me that inflation went down, I want to throw something through the television. Okay, if inflation was 7%, and now let's say it's 4 or 5, let's say it's 4%. If you tell me that inflation went down 3%, I'm going to scream my lungs out because that's me gaining 7 pounds last year. I gained 4 pounds this year. I didn't lose a pound. You can't say because I didn't gain another 7 pounds, my weight went down.
Well, they did.
You know what I mean? I mean, it compounds on itself. It's not like a fixed number that, everything's cheaper now. It's just not growing at the same pace it was before. And it's still taking it's taking the money out of your pocket. Your dollars spend less and everything goes up in price.
But the fiat system isn't designed to stop growing. It's a management of the growth.
You have to have inflation for it to survive.
Fair enough. CPI, give me 2%, 3%, but don't give me 8. Don't give me 7.
When you climb above 3%, it gets tenuous.
That's it. That's exactly
3%
right.
is the magic number.
In fact, it probably didn't do us very well when it was lower than 3% and the money was just almost free that you could borrow and everything else.
We still had inflation then, but that was the interest rate was that high. And granted, we may have raised the interest rate higher than we should have and too quick, which has caused this, but they're trying to fight inflation by causing deflation and depression.
But it's so disconnected to me because while they're trying to raise interest rates, which actually hits everybody, investment, the development side can't afford the interest rates to build. Take any construction job and think how many trades are in that job and how many jobs that creates. When you can't finance or afford development, or if you can't build a home that's reasonably priced so someone could buy it, you're hitting this economy on so many levels. Well, how about stop spending? How about quit printing money? How about you quit doing that?
Particularly, you're involved in construction, in large construction. Let's say we shut down commercial construction. Not only does that hurt all the guys on your job site, but you've got guys that all the way back to the guy who initially starts mixing that concrete, and the guy who's rolling that conduit through the machines, and the guy who's,
and guys, look, this is one of the fastest growing states in America. And if we think our young people coming in, it's actually an infrastructure. Okay. When you have young people coming into the economy, they've finished school, whatever they're doing, some states are shrinking right now. Wisconsin, the speaker, Robin Voss, I got to know him when I was Speaker of the House. We'd have this speakers meeting every year annually, and no staff, nothing, just the speakers. You have your name and the state, but you didn't know even the party affiliation. And the exercise was, what's going well? What do you think you're moving the needle on? What are you happy about? And then what's kicking your tail? What are you upset about? I would leave that meeting every time we do this annually, loving our problems. Yeah, I'd take a bag of problems in Utah over these states any day. One of them is, Robin Voss says, in Wisconsin, we're an aging state. We're shrinking in population. I'm a supply sider. I believe the more jobs we bring, the more people make, the more taxes they'll pay, so long as the economy is going up. If I have companies come in and they need, 1,200 jobs, we don't have the workforce. And I'm listening to him talk about that, and I'm thinking, Utah does. We have such young people. We have young people that need these opportunities. So that is a trajectory for our state unique. But what are we doing? We have 29 counties, and if it's not Washington County or Iron County, and it's not the 4 counties along the Wasatch Front, even Tooele, I think more of your population wakes up in the morning and leaves the county to go to work and come back home than has industry or jobs that you could have here in your county. It's not it's not a sustainable way to do it. So what happens to our kids? Cost of living goes up, quality of life goes down, and these kids are going to go. Okay.
Yeah,
then what happens to our valuable infrastructure? Our greatest part of our future are these young ones, and they are going to have to leave to go to another state because we've literally seen the spending, the inflation, the interest rates, and the short-sightedness of trying to jam it all into a valley of 4 counties. It doesn't work. And so I'm probably ranting now more than I'm laying out a case, but I'm going to tell you, I just think that Congress, what they're doing with inflation, the way they're spending recklessly, it's just, you can't keep doing it. And I don't know when they think that's going to stop. I mean, debt ceiling certainly didn't stop them. Even the date for the debt ceiling bill they passed, January of 25. You know what that sounds like? It sounds like the January 23 Pelosi lame duck bill when they were voted out of power, but they could still do a bill in January where they were leaving. That was a disaster. That bill was a nightmare, in my opinion. And why you'd let that debt ceiling go to January of 25, I will never understand. I would have waited for a 24 election for both Congress and the president to see who we have over there, because we got to win more seats, man. We can't keep losing the Senate, and we can't just have 5-member majority in the House. If we do, then people don't think we're common sense, that Republicans are common sense, and we're not going to get anything done.
Would you have voted for that ceiling bill if you were in?
Not. I mean, for even the date alone. Now, look, there's a very complicated process, but one of the criticisms I've heard, and again, I'm out here in the cheap seats out here. I don't know what goes on truly, but this is if Speaker McCarthy was not bringing that caucus along on the points, they passed the budget. Remember, no one thought they could, and they did. As you depart away from that budget, as your departure and you're trying to find common ground, I have no problem with that, but you should have your caucus in the loop. You got to know what's a deal breaker, what is, what's not. The way I've read it, and I've watched the same things you have, it wasn't happening that way. It was almost like, here's your sheet of music, sing, because that's all we can do. Some people pushed back on that. They didn't like it. The one thing that I just mentioned, something that should be rudimentary, that should have been a lot easier to negotiate, was changing that date. That January 25 sets up for a lame duck Congress and a lame duck president to make decisions that I don't think should be theirs. I think it should be the November 24, what the people say in 24. They're the ones that need to stare at this debt ceiling when it expires. And that alone, I think, is a very dangerous way to start playing this. So,
yeah, I agree. I mean, we couldn't default on the debt.
No.
If the U.S. defaulted, the world collapses. We're that important. But I don't know. There's probably a million ways to answer it. The one I think the most is we go 10th Amendment. It just, anything that can revert back to the states, we give it to the states.
Right. I agree with you. And look, in my public service, I've had a lot of people want to give me false choices. You know, do it our way or do it this way or Armageddon. The whole thing's the sky will fall. It's going to fall on top of us. Sometimes these choices that we hear, you can dig down. There's so many details to all of these things, and you can work through these things. And I've seen it, especially with the media and the left, where they try to create these narratives of, you know, Armageddon or our way.
Yeah.
Well, I'm telling you, it's a tried and true practice, and it works a lot. Sadly,
when they reverted abortion back to the states, the media talked about it like it was the end of the world.
Yeah, that's right.
We are, what are we now? 11 months past it.
I think the sun's still rising, don't you? I mean, are we okay out here?
The world's okay. I haven't seen one poor young lady on the side of the road, you know.
You know what's so funny? This is a bit of a tangent, but here's the thing with me a few years ago. I figured Roe v. Wade's a law of the land. You know, I'm thinking, okay, you know, I'm not getting wrapped around the axle on I'm pro-life. I always will be.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's never changed. But did I think Roe v. Wade would be overturned? Nah. And did I just didn't have this sense of urgency about Roe v. Wade until there was this governor in Virginia, Northrop, whatever his name was, who started wanting to do post-birth abortions.
That was scary.
Yep.
Okay. That's infanticide. And I came to this horrible realization. They're not stopping. Like 1972 Roe v. Wade. It was if the fetus was viable outside the mother's womb, then you can't abort that child.
Most places it was second trimester.
Yes,
you're done.
And you saw all the push to the late trimester to the keep the baby comfortable as we terminate it. It's and all of a
He
sudden
said that on a radio show.
He said
on
it
a
out loud.
national radio show.
And I'm going to tell you that when I heard that, I realized I'm being duped. They are not stopping. They are going to push this envelope and keep pushing this, and we better start pushing back. And it actually reinvigorated me that this is not an issue that's been settled. This is actually scary what they're doing. And so I see that on a lot of fronts with the left. I mean, I think the target upset, these tuckable bathing suits and everything. As soon as they start going after our kids, everybody was kind of Pride Day is going to be what it is, or Pride Month, right? It's going to be what it is.
Well,
then they start going after these kids.
I heard next year it's going to be Pride Quarter. Just going to say.
I know.
Then,
It could be a
then we'll
quarter of a
be
year.
Pride Decade in about 4 years.
I think that we have to be comfortable with and be able to say out loud, we're going to protect kids. And we don't want to sexualize
period.
kids. And I want a child to be a child until they're an adult. And then when they're adult, go do what adults do. You make some decisions.
And if the child is going to have to be introduced to anything sexual, I want the parents to be in that loop 100%.
And but even then, at an age where it's appropriate, where it actually would apply, when these prepubescent kids are hearing all these terms and these pictures that you can't show on the radio or on TV and talk about on the radio, and you can't say in a public hearing, I will go to my grave believing that these kids, that should have been the same standard to keep away from a child.
Absolutely.
I can't even think anyone would argue otherwise.
Where did the common sense of that go?
It's gone. And that's what I mean is I say conservative less and common sense more, because the Democrats have left public safety. That wasn't a partisan issue. Everyone wanted public safety. You want to protect kids. That was a no-brainer for everybody. No one disagreed with that. How about transparency in elections? I never thought that everybody staring at when you vote, the chain of custody, how it's counted, how it's reported, everybody, both parties, all candidates, everyone watching that process together. That was never partisan, that you do or don't do that. It was the way you had integrity in your elections. That's a partisan issue. And I just think common sense, there's more of us than there are of those social engineers that are trying to hijack this. And I think they're really deteriorating our foundational institutions of this country. And we just got to call it out. I really think we're there.
What do you think about the Utah elections? Would you, on a scale of 1 to 10, are you a satisfied customer?
I'm not. I look, we can always do better. And there was an audit that said we need to have audits of our elections. And so Representative Mike Schultz ran a bill to see that the legislative auditors audit this. I've seen anomalies counting. You'll have Sherry Swenson in Salt Lake County say, here's how many ballots we've received. Here's how many we've counted. Okay. And as they've gone over those numbers over day, they're not adding up what they've counted and what they have left or what's coming in. But what I'm really worried about is in vote by mail, we lose a chain of custody that I think is critical. And I remember when the bill came on the floor in the House, Jim Dunnigan and I, Representative Dunnigan, we were looking at this and we were already apprehensive, but we thought, wait, we better look at this postmark, because some of these, elections are announced, at least initially, at 8 p.m. on election night, first Tuesday in November. You can get a postmark at, say, the Redwood Road post office up till 10 p.m. So we were saying, look, you could find out that a House seat had a 12 vote difference, and then you could go and you'd have 2 hours to go find people that hadn't voted yet,
run the neighborhood,
do something, run those in and get those postmarks. So we said, okay, here's how we're going to solve that. We're going to make the post date the day before the election. Okay. We thought we were smart in doing that. Most people don't mail it in anymore. There's not even a postmark to be seen. So you have 0 postmark. You can't look to see if the date's right. There's no date because they go to the drop boxes and drop them off.
Can we make it the drop box puts a mark on it?
I think so.
They got insane laser printers that look, as you drop it in.
Here's what we should do. Put the election official, mail out ballots so that people can see the names and they can see the issues and they can do some research. I got no problem. But if it's already the case that more people are now dropping off those ballots at some voting location drop box than they are mailing it, then let's just have an elections person there, scan your ID, see that the ID matches the ballot, drop it in the box.
Yeah.
Let's do it. I think enough people are concerned about voter elections and integrity and being an open process and a fair process. You can find volunteers all day that'll do that. Some counties were saying our election judges are aging and it's hard to find people. I don't think anymore. If the sovereignty's with us, if we're the boss, meaning it's not a king, it's not a president, it's up to us. Mm-hmm. If they take away, if they cancel our vote.
Hold on, what's this sovereignty with us thing you speak of? Let's explore this for a second.
Yeah,
that's like our responsibility.
What was this? What is
we're
this
the boss.
like?
We are. Yeah, I know. She's like, really? That's how it's supposed to be. So
tell that to the guy up in Montana that owns a gun shop. How's he feeling about being the boss?
Yeah, the sovereignty doesn't feel so strong. I'm telling you, if we get to a place where no one cares how you vote, they just care who counts, because they got a system that they just can come up with the end result they want, then we've lost that we're the boss sovereignty. And what I would say is I'm putting my state legislative hat on, but I want to find ways so that I think it's not, people like getting that ballot a little early, not just coming to it all fresh at the voting booth. I like to vote on election day. I'm old school, but I can see it. But have everybody come to the drop box, have those volunteers that can scan your ID. And someone said to me, but then I can't bring my spouses. Yeah, you can. You got to take 2 trips, like you would have if you were voting. You couldn't go into a voting location on the day of the election and vote for you and your spouse. Yeah, you got to come in and drop off your ballot. As soon as you do that and you have that box and you verified that the person is real, that's just dropped it in there, and you can, and again, it was 2023. How can we not stream this? How can we not all see the boxes? How can we see how they're stored, how they're counted? We should be able to make all of that as transparent as the day is long. And then for all parties, have party representatives there, have the elections clerk there, have the AG there for all I care, have anyone you want, but everybody's watching the same thing at the same time. And if you do that, that should not be partisan. Nobody should argue with a system like that.
Right. Mm-hmm. We should treat it with the same holy reverence that we treat Pride Month. I mean,
yeah, at least.
I'm not asking for a lot.
Come on, let's do this. You know how many banners on streaming there we could get for voting if we just treated it the same? That would be great.
We are getting a lot of questions about the border. We got to talk about the border.
Let's run through these questions real quick. All right. Molly May says, yay. Fred says, I'll take the raspberry.
The mango's good. Just FYI.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Yeah.
It's a good little flavor.
Dave preaches that acai berry.
Like the gospel.
Ooh, you guys are fancy famous now. I still have, okay. I still have to make my own shakes every morning. I guess you're better than me now. Okay. You want a sign? O'Malley May wants a sign. So where can people contact to get a yard sign?
GregHughes.com. I think there's a sign up sheet in the website.
Would you deliver it to someone who lives out of the district?
Out of the district? Sure. I mean, look.
She's in like Midvale. She's edge of the heart of the beast there.
You know what we need, everyone? We need people that are common sense to get involved. And come one, come all. I believe everything is a.
Oh, she's a good person, but she lives in a questionable politically area.
Well, then be careful if you have my sign up there. Democrats tend to be triggered by my name.
Believe me, they need to be careful.
Hey, Greg, you mentioned the Freedom Caucus previously.
Yeah.
Would that be something you'd pursue?
Yes, absolutely.
I like it.
I love what they're saying. I love what they're doing. I'm sure you got guys like you got Chip Roy there. You've got Andy Biggs. He was the Senate president in Arizona, so he know when I talk about legislative processes, you talk about anybody that's been in a state legislature knows the strength of a separate and equal branch of government and what it can and should be doing. So he's a guy that I know understands what they're capable of. You got a new freshman, Eli Crane, that I quite like. He was a Navy SEAL, I believe, and he's a great freshman. And I know they're already talking about this, so what I'm saying isn't new to them, I'm sure. But 45, you need more.
Yeah,
45 didn't get you. It doesn't pass a bill. It doesn't do anything. You can block some stuff, but you can't. You got to get some things done. And right now, when you only have a 5-member House majority, it's kind of like America's going, I don't know if Republicans are common sense. I don't know. I don't know. The jury's out on if there's a uniparty or if there's some common sense, freedom-loving, freedom
What'd be
protecting
nice is
members of Congress.
is to see some Democrats who want to jump into a freedom caucus, and they may have different views on certain social issues, but they want free speech.
Yes.
Just the desire for free speech should be enough to get you to see.
Give me one Democrat.
that
That'd
coalition.
be awesome.
You know, they have such a litmus test, those guys. But I'll tell you this, to your point, they used to be called Blue Dog Democrats.
Yep.
Okay. And you used to have like Zell Miller, he was governor of Georgia. And I'll just say this. It's that buddy system I'm talking about. There's a lot of common ground in good conservative public policy that even if people are on an honest day talking about how to get things better, I've talked to Democrats about transparency in elections, and they can't look at me and go, well, I hate transparency in elections. That's the worst thing I've ever heard. No, they'll admit that is the way we should be doing this.
There might be certain elections that they say will start after that one, but
That's right.
but
right.
then again, we got to remember that we had the same issue in Florida when Bush won
Yep.
with the Republicans.
Yep.
And that's why you get it. You get it. I just listened to an argument today between all Democrats about the nuclear option that Harry Reid put through that came around to bite the Democrats in the ass.
Yeah. The 51 votes for a
Yeah.
confirmation of a judge.
Yeah.
Yep. No one did
and
it ever.
came around to bite them in the ass.
Yep.
And they stomped and wailed, but he was warned, you do this, it's going to come around.
When it comes around, goes around. It does. I mean,
Yeah.
majorities change. But you know what? I honestly think that we actually can get some of this common sense stuff accomplished. We have a lot of censorship through social media. They said they were platforms. They shouldn't be held for libel or slander because they're just like, it'd be like if you robbed a bank in a Chevy, you can't sue Chevy
Yep.
for robbing the bank because they just drove the car.
or the road
Or the road.
Yeah.
But they don't do that anymore. They do shadow ban or censor. They are not just a conduit or a platform where communication's going on that they simply can't control, so don't hold them liable. They are shaping it. And I'm telling you, there should be liability laws and slander laws that apply to, I mean, this is why they all domicile in the United States, because if they tried to open up if they did any of this in another country, there are slander and libel laws they would be subject to.
Oh, yeah.
For what they do. And they don't want to be held subject to that. They have their protections, their legal protections in our country, social media, because that's how we kind of communicate now, by and large.
And I want to
Far
keep them.
it's far too protective and sweet for them at our detriment.
I want to give them all the freedoms to allow anyone on there. I want to give them zero freedoms to decide who's on there.
Correct.
And I just want to make it like that. You're a platform. That's
Yep,
all you are.
that's it.
You can't put your finger on the scale. You can't do any of that.
Look, that's how they sold it. That's how they got Congress to pass these laws that shielded them from any legal liabilities. They said, look, all we are is the platform for people to take these conversations and go with them. And then they went and changed that.
Well, they became the weapon of certain alphabet agencies. You look at Twitter
Yeah.
and what has been uncovered there. I mean, let's face it, these platforms are powerful.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
yes.
they're information collection tools used by the governments to fight other governments and collect information on
Like
people.
if the Catholic Church had Gutenberg come to them and say, what do you want in this book?
Yeah.
It's the exact same thing.
I think that I thank goodness there'll be different opinions about Elon Musk, but I mean if we have any platform that people can actually talk and have freedom of speech, or at least try to get your point across, Tucker's on there doing his show now, and I just think you got to have that. If you don't, it's one of the core. By the way, the Constitution doesn't grant us one single right. It protects the rights we inherently already have.
Yeah, it just makes it so Congress can't.
Yes.
touch
And
rights.
so, look, this freedom of speech, we should be absolutely, it shouldn't be infringed upon, and we should be able to do this. And if we were, the reason they censor us is because if we actually knew by way of majority how much stronger we are than them, we would win all the elections.
Yeah.
If we could get together. And here's what I'll give this analogy. So when I was, my son, who's 21, when he was little, like 10 years old, I used to be a assistant football coach, but really probably the water boy. Yeah. So I kept them hydrated, these kids. But anyway, I'd be on the sidelines with them, and I did this through, Gremlin and Pee Wee and Mighty Might and all that. And the kids would start getting upset about a call the ref made. The ref, robbing them from the game and everything. And I would just tell them, if you win by 4 touchdowns, there's not a ref that can touch you. Okay. If you win by 4 touchdowns, there's no referee on this field that's going to take this win away from you.
Yeah.
What I would say to Utahns is that we got to win by 4 touchdowns. If Fulton County in Georgia, one county in Atlanta, can erase the collective will of every single county in the rest of the state of Georgia, okay, then the rest of those counties better start coming out in a lot big numbers larger than the population of Fulton County can even produce. Same with Milwaukee and Wisconsin. Same with Clark County, Las Vegas, and Nevada. Same as Maricopa County in Arizona. We have to start coming out in numbers. But why would Americans come out for Republicans right now if they look like a uniparty? You can't look like the. Sorry if anyone loves McConnell, but I think he looks a lot like a Democrat. I think his willingness to cut deals has left the middle class and Americans behind. And you got to have some people that everyday Americans, maybe people that used to be Democrats. I mean, did anyone ever think at RFK Jr. that the Democrats would be kicking him out and
I'm
ripping
excited.
him?
I'm so excited to see this year.
They won't let him on a debate stage with Biden.
That's
how bad that party's gotten.
This is my.
Tulsi walked away too.
Yeah.
What a loss that is for them.
I'm just excited to see this year, to see RFK debating Joe Biden. One, they're not going to let Biden on a debate stage. Period. I promise you
I know,
that.
they can't.
Did you hear
They
what he
can't.
said the other day?
God save the Queen. I heard he said that.
Oh, he said that. Do you know what he said before that?
No.
He said a pistol brace hooks to the back of the pistol. I'm quoting from as best I can. Hooks to the back of the pistol and makes it a gun, and then it can fire a bigger caliber bullet. Yeah. Now, I don't know how familiar we are with pistol braces, but they don't do any of
None
that.
of that sounds familiar to me whatsoever.
A pistol brace is a piece of plastic
Yeah.
that allows a handicapped person to support the gun at 2 separate points of contact.
Well, I don't think you can take anything Joe Biden says to face value.
And then he said, at the same speech, he said, God save the Queen. Now, that may have been because a kid was wearing a Union Jack in the front row. He's at a college. But he actually said that. That's a leader of the free
Was
world.
there a
folks.
sandbag on that stage?
There should have been.
Was there? Because I never saw the sandbag, and I saw him fall like Sonny Liston on the ground there. I
dude.
mean, he was out. He wasn't even like stumbling, and he just kind of jumped up. You know how you trip sometimes?
Yeah.
You look around, hope
Come
no
up
one
and-
noticed it. Hey, look around.
Yeah.
He's out. He's
Yeah.
like out. You got to get people to.
That was a
lift him
hard
back
fall.
up.
I feel bad for him. I have a lot of sympathy for the guy. I think he's being utilized as a tool right now.
It feels like elder abuse, honestly.
Yeah.
It really does, with his wife Jill
Yeah.
and his kids and everyone else. I can't believe they prop him up there like that. It is sad.
Well, the big guys.
Sad, but really sad
provide
for us
income.
too. Think about this. A lot of presidents would not do what is going on in this country right now because they wouldn't want to own it in history. Because he's unaware, the people around him never being accountable, us never knowing their names, what they are willing to put this country through. Even what they're willing to put us through with Trump, where they're indicting a former president the way they are on the charges they are. But when you look at what the Biden family and the Hunter Biden laptop has exposed with Joe or his brother Jim or whatever his name is, or the family, it is a 2-tier justice system. It's all out there, and they don't care that they're putting this country through all of this. They just don't. They've jumped the shark like Fonzie on Happy Days. It's just the show's over. I mean,
We're
it's
being
just
run
done.
by an administrator.
Yeah, and they don't care because they'll never be accountable. History will never know
Their
their
name's
names,
not on it.
and they'll never know their
So
names.
if they succeed, maybe they'll put their name on it after the fact. But when it fails, they'll just.
I actually think that the goal is for it to fail. I don't think you open a border for any other reason, not enforce it, but to see it deteriorate this country. I don't think you deplete the military and make it woke for anything but failure. You don't do what you're doing to these kids in public schools, higher ed, unless you want to see that fail. You don't let inflation do what it's doing to families unless you want it to fail. There is no consolidation of power that makes individuals more free. Okay, they're just diametrically opposed. This is a consolidation of power. They don't trust you to be self-determining. They don't want you to have liberty. They think they've got this world figured out. They know where they want you to be. You're going to be in this caste system. You're going to be born here, stay here. Don't try to get outside your lane here. That's not us. That's not the American dream. But I don't think they're even trying to be successful. I think they're just trying to tear down these foundational institutions. It's a power play. That's the way I see it.
I think you're right.
Game of Thrones.
Well, we
Yeah,
do know
very much.
that you're coming up against another meeting
Yes, I am.
that you
actually.
have. So what we want to say is there's a few more questions after this all shakes down. I just want to say you're cool to talk to.
I listen to Jesse Kelly.
All right.
That's an absolute yes.
That she asks that of everyone.
Yeah.
If Jesse Kelly came on the show, she would ask him. That's one of her favorite radio shows.
Yeah.
But if you win or not, can we get you to come back on and
Heavens, yes.
spitball
Absolutely.
Excellent.
southern border questions going on?
Good patriot I know named Kish North. He said, "You're nothing if you're not on this podcast." He just said that over the weekend to me.
That's a scary thought then.
So
All right, ladies and gentlemen.
All right.
That's Greg Hughes.
Yes. All right. We'll be back on a little later. I think at 8:30 or something.
Yes,
All
sir.
right. So
good
we'll
luck with
see
these
you.
cans. How's it going, by the way? I mean, is it good? You guys having a good time? Good conversation? I don't know how this
we love
compares.
it.
I have no
Survived
idea.
for 2 years
We
doing
love it.
this.
I'm
so
excited.
far so good.
I'm excited for after this one kicks out and we get to start chatting with the Democrats.